Well, I'd like to welcome everyone. This is Dr. Edward Condrat, and my guest is Dr. Jeff Lester. And I want to wish everyone a happy Easter. And I think there's no greater gift than we can give you is the gift of understanding homeopathy. And homeopathy is, I always tell my patients that homeopathy is really difficult to explain. And that's why I'm kind of punning this whole situation to my friend, Dr. Jeff Lester. He's a colleague of mine. He's a homeopathic doctor that I have a lot of great respect for. And as many as you know that I'm spending the winter in Santa Cruz. And as it turned out, he's my neighbor here. He has a practice here in Northern California. So we've been hanging out together, talking about homeopathy, and he's been really rekindling my interest in homeopathy. I've always had a passion for homeopathy, but he's been very supportive of what I'm doing. So, Dr. Lester, I'd like to begin by, you're an internist, you're an educated medical doctor. Why in the world did you develop an interest in homeopathy? I thought only quacks did that stuff.
Yeah, that's right. I remember when I first heard about it myself, I thought these little ridiculous looking pills that are in the health store that no one knows how to use are supposed to do something. And the very first time I tried it was with a little girl, 11-year-old girl with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis who had been crippled for 2 years, 11 years old. And a couple friends of mine said that they were docs, said probably the only thing that could help her would be homeopathy. And I was very in disbelief, gave it to her. Within 30 days, after 2 years of limping around on crutches and everything, she was doing jumping jacks in my office, joined the cheerleading team within a month and a half. And it was the most astounding thing I had ever seen in my medical career. That got we called it the hook in homeopathy, where the first time you try it, you do something that is quite amazing, and it just gets your attention. You can't stop thinking about it. Like, how in the world did that happen? We had sent her to Stanford Rheumatology, and she had been on prednisone and anti-inflammatories back. This is in 1987. And when I saw that, I went, how in the world did that happen? Had no idea. And so then a couple other friends of mine who were docs in the field had been studying it from England and Greece, and went up to the Bay Area where there was a kind of a think tank of a group that were studying this. And when I saw the quality of the doctors that were studying it, I knew it was more than just a simple little bit of quackery. I'd ask, hey, is this reproducible? Or is this a fluke that you get now and then? And oh no, when you get good at it, you'll reproduce those results of getting that immune system back in order 80 or higher percent of the time, 80 to 90% of the time. And I went, wow, if that's true, I have to give it a second look. Because in internal medicine, we were saving lives, taught how to put a needle up in the pericardium to pull fluid out, shock the heart back into rhythm, use a ventilator, but I had never seen restoring an immune system back to health. That was something that piqued my interest. And when I joined the college up there and studied it, the results were just what they said, 80 to 90% of the time, as long as there's not too much extensive damage to the system, you can restore the system back to normal. I just did it yesterday with a woman came in her first follow-up in 6 weeks. Her rheumatoid arthritis is probably 50 to 60% recovered in 6 weeks. And I expect her in another 6 weeks to be up towards 80 to 90% recovered because she's only 44 years old.
Well, you know what? You're right about that hook. My hook was when homeopathy cured me of my asthma, when everybody told me nothing could be done. And I was suffering with 3 asthma medications, trying to do eye surgery with the tremor. And then one homeopathic remedy cured me. And then the other hook was I treated a physician that was blind from a central retinal artery occlusion. And I was taught in school ophthalmology that, there's nothing you can do. One homeopathic remedy and his vision came back.
Wow.
I said, man, I got to learn this stuff.
Yeah, that'll get your attention. Better than prednisone. When doctors discovered prednisone, they thought that was a true miracle. And it's an amazing drug. It saves lives, but it does not repair the system. What you're going to see here with this system, it actually brings the system back in order. It can organize the system, it repairs the system. And I just did it with someone who had a massive cerebral hemorrhage, stroke. And when I saw her, she was only able to say one word, just the word yes, that's it. And she was a nurse in the hospital. And then we got started right away within 30 days of the stroke. And now she's up to about 15 to 20 sentences, speaking very well, still gets a little hooked up sometimes, but I'm expecting her to make a complete recovery from a massive stroke that without the use of these homeopathics probably would have never happened. So many things that we've seen that are supposedly incurable, you have to see it to believe it, that these remedies, what they're doing is they're signaling the part of the brain. I'll show you my favorite picture here. They're signaling this part of the brain here in the center, and where those arrows come from, that part of the brain is like a circuit board. And that circuit board, when it wants to correct something, it'll correct it anywhere in the body. This is another diagram where, oops, this one here, a diagram where it shows multiple parts of the body, mind, memory, emotions, organ systems. So we treat the system, not the symptom. The top represents the symptom where the symptoms expressed. The bottom are the systems that are linked to the mind. This is probably the biggest mistake that happened in the 1930s, is they separated that the mind and the body are not connected. And what I'll be discussing today is I have a method called the relational method I use. In the relational method, you relate the part of the suffering in the organ system that is frozen or stuck. The purple represents a frozen state of dysfunction. You find out where it's stuck and you link it to the way the mind is frozen in the same way. And I'll talk about distortion signals shortly that show exactly what I mean by that. And as you go up the cone diagram from the tip up, the tip represents invisible. You really can't see the problem until it gets towards the surface. Then you go up to from the nervous system, the immune system, hormonal circulatory system, and I tell patients, this is what we're going to repair. Your neuroimmunohormonal circulatory system. In that stroke patient, her blood extravasation in her brain resorbed and her neurons turned back on, almost like getting the moisture out of a battery in a radio, and the radio was playing again. That's her brain function. Heart, liver, lungs, eyes. There's Ed's specialty in the eyes, getting the eye to repair, whether it's from a tear, a bleed, or reproducing. We even think that I have seen where stem cells get activated from this process of homeopathic, because when you go from the purple to the green, it turns on the process of back and action. Then you go up to other organs like the stomach, the bladder, things like irritable bowel syndrome, chronic gastritis, or the most popular thing of today is Gerd, the gastroesophageal reflux disorder. People are refluxing because they have a weak sphincter that's leaking acid from the stomach up the esophagus and taking all these acid drugs. The acid drug doesn't fix the sphincter. You're never going to cure the Gerd. We learned about that where their surgeons would go down in, put little cuts in the lower esophageal sphincter where the esophagus joins the stomach to try to get it to tighten up a little bit. Or you do the Nissen fundoplication where you wrap a sling to tighten up the sphincter. And I said, boy, with homeopathy, it looks like we could just tighten it up by sending a signal. And that signal tells the system, get out of the loose state. And sure enough, a lot of the GERD goes away through homeopathic care. Allergies are, I call them ADD of the immune system. So you find what's not working right in the nervous system, you relate that to the immune system, and you can cure allergies. I cured my own son of allergies, asthma, eczema, and ADD, all with one homeopathic preparation. Just like you were mentioning, Ed, how one preparation could restore things like chronic back pain. And today we'll talk about arthritis, hypertension, preventing heart attacks, autoimmune diseases, and viral protection and recovery. So musculoskeletal, I myself had chronic back pain for 20 years that wasn't linked to anything other than swollen discs, and homeopathic did a miracle for me. And converting from that purple to the green, the disc brings tone back to the system. And the tone can go to your joints, soft, healthy tone, not too loose, not too tight. It can go to your spine. It can go to your neck, even your fingers. Personally, it dissolved my arthritic nodules to zero in my hands, so I have full motion in my hands. It'll keep me going for many years as a physician. And then mucous membranes would be things like your nose, throat, people with chronic coughs, chronic postnasal drainage, or mucous membranes of the eye. I have one little boy I saw recently where he had chronic blepharitis, or that dryness of the eyes. Dry eyes, very common condition. You can't cure dry eyes, but putting moisture drops in there, that's a temporary solution. Homeopathic, when you change from that purple to the green, you are bringing the secretion of the proper amount of oil and liquid and salts back to any organ, including the eyes. And skin, we have many, many cases. You can see them on our website. We have a little girl on there for 8 years. She was told, her mother was told that her horrible dyshydrotic eczema, which had scabs and crusts and cuts, and it was around her eyes and her mouth and arms, legs, torso, everywhere. It was like sandpaper for 8 years. And she was crying at the local post office. One of my patients said, why are you crying? She said, I brought my daughter to Stanford for several times. I've seen 10 dermatologists. It's just more steroids. They said she'd never recover. And I think it took 4 to 5 months of homeopathic care, and her skin is like velvet soft with no more scabs, crusts, and her whole allergic tendency. She had an asthmatic coughing tendency was gone at the same time. And hair, nails, skin, those all go together, that those are immune organs. They're linked. Everything is linked here. And when those have that same purple to green change, the skin gets really beautiful and you age more slowly. People are asking, gee, what do you put on skin to make more beautiful skin? I said, it's not what you put on your skin. It's how the hydraulic system, you might say, inside is secreting things. That's what preserves beautiful skin, hair, and nails. You'll see better nail growth, better joint growth, and better skin growth. One day, hopefully, we can measure not just sticking stem cells in people's bodies, but this system is able to turn them on as well as possible. And that's probably why the repair system goes into superdrive. Just so people know also, homeopathy started here in the United States in 1825, and it came through Allentown, Pennsylvania. They set up a medical school in 1836. And the AIH was here 3 to 4 years before the AMA. The AMA in Philadelphia, and the AMA, you see, was in New York. And they were competing organizations. Dr. Hahnemann established in 1796 there and wrote his first book in 1810. There's nothing new about it. And 22 medical schools and 110 US hospitals were using homeopathy between 1840 and 1940. That Flexner report of 1910 said if you can't test your drugs on laboratory animals and you can't show the disease on a cadaver or in surgery, then we're not interested in having it part of the AMA. And that was a bit of an unfortunate time. They dropped away the healing repair method and kept the molecular, high molecular, you can make changes in the system with things like antihypertensives, painkillers, prednisone, sleep aids, all the steroids. But what you can't do is repair the system back to a strong, normal system. They were doing it between 1840 and 1940, and then you weren't allowed to join the AMA if you even were caught speaking to a doctor practice homeopathy. So all the courses became electives. You can see between 1950 and 1940. The last school to close, the last elective was named Hahnemann in Philadelphia. It's still named Hahnemann University. And that stopped in 1955. I got involved in the 1980s. I didn't think much of the system. I didn't see that miracle of that juvenile rheumatoid arthritis case until 1988. And then I had the hook. Homeopathy gets reestablished in the 1970s, and wonderful people had to go to Europe mostly, Greece and England and Holland, to bring this system back in, over here. We have dietary programs that are about exercise, healthy living. Everybody's really focused on that, and that's great, but it's only a third of health. Living healthy, being healthy, eating healthy. If you have an autoimmune disease, then that is just not going to be the link you need in order to get that kind of protection in your system. The mind-body connection on the left, very important. that what you feel, it's not the, as you'll see in a moment, not the what you're thinking in the front of the brain, it's the back of the brain that governs the autonomic nervous system or the involuntary nervous system. That's what makes the changes in the system. And down the bottom, neurochemistry and genetics. A lot of times it's what you've inherited that's your challenge. Sometimes I'm programmed to develop arthritis at 55 years old. You go, what did I do wrong? Did I eat wrong or do something wrong? And I'll tell patients, actually, your brain and nervous system are programmed to develop that. And if you can keep the system out of the pressurized part on the genes, you don't have to develop that genetic flaw. That says from the top, life experiences and daily stresses can produce problems in the system, but the underside from grandpa down there, if you inherit those traits, they'll really confuse people. Influences how we feel deeply inside our core, our strong experiences we have in our life. Sure, that's important. I call those turning points. But genetic inheritance is very powerful. Parental traits, oftentimes lineage struggles, can have gone from several generations, can transfer to future generations, causing perplexing disturbances. People get very confused, like, why does my child have this horrible eczema or asthma they inherited from the lineage? And it can take 4 generations for this to work out, where it can be expedited within that one person using homeopathic care. We call that the inner scream. The inner scream is the central part of the immune system and nervous system. Eczema is really a form of that scream. It's creating symptoms. It's not happy. The bottom line is the pink matches inside the purple. You're mimicking the way the system is frozen or stuck, and you unfreeze it. And when you go into the green, it's an accelerated state of healing. That's what happened with all the miracles we see in homeopathy, is the green is an accelerated state of repair. Okay, so that's the center part of the brain. These 2 diagrams here, this is the negative. What's the difference in these 2 diagrams is you'll see in here 2 block filters. We'll talk a little bit about filters, and the signals coming out of the autonomic nervous system or limbic system, hypothalamus part, are negative. They're shooting into the body and they're shooting into the mind, where in this diagram, the healthy diagram, they're producing a positive signal. That signal is like a surveillance signal for cancers. It's a surveillance signal for inflammation, for repair, for everything. And when that signal's getting through, you're in good shape. You'll see that the one going to the brain, the back of the brain to the front of the brain, is positive. You feel positive even if your life is dealing you a negative situation. And Ed, I'm sure you've seen this in people, that not only is their vision improving, but they're feeling happier and more vibrant and healthier, and they're following their diet.
I love it. I love it when a patient will tell me, I don't know what you gave me, Dr. Kondrot, but I've never felt so good about myself.
Exactly. You can see the self-esteem growing. When you see in children, I see more kids now for physical ailments, but a severe state of negative thinking coming out of the brain, including things like suicide, cutting. We had 5 out of 5 girls last year stop cutting themselves within 1 week of this treatment, because this goes away. This is the main problem, is that from the brain, if you're sending out from the deep limbic system negative signaling, not only is your body going to suffer, but your brain's going to suffer with hopeless despair, negative thinking, feelings of low self-esteem, perhaps jealousy, thinking others are better than you, trying to cut others down rather than build others up. And on Easter, we know this is the time to get people more into this state, the positive state, the state of building others up. And you have to build yourself up in order to build others up. And the relational method is, we find in the language of the person will use, how they're cutting themselves down goes away after treatment. They don't use negative language anymore. So I started seeing that, firstly, people look more vibrant, their skin, their hair, their nails, their organs were starting to improve. So that's why I drew this diagram, that this signal to the body got positive at the same time the signal to the brain was positive. So this person in a healthy state, they could deal with a very stressful situation and snap back to positive very quickly. Same thing here is if you're in the purple state and something negative happens, you might say the purple is kind of like aluminum foil in a ball. It imprints and stays, where the green is like a fresh basketball outside the box. If you push on that guy, it's going to push right back. You're not going to stay in the negative state. The longer you stay in this negative state, the more possibility of becoming diseased. So if you want to be prepared for your immune system for something like COVID-19 or any influenza virus, or be prepared for any type of illness you're going to have, in the green, I call it immune agility, that you're ready and poised to fight whatever comes in at what's called the surface layers. The top would be nails, hair, skin, mucous membranes. That's your nose, your skin, and your eyes. You probably know, Ed, that some diseases come through the eyes. If it comes in through your eyes, like we tell people, the N95 mask for COVID-19 definitely helped. The other masks don't help so much, but the N95 helped, a real good mask. But goggles were working for the eyes, because some people were contracting virus through the mucous membranes of the eye. Well, they all have antibodies on them, IgA antibodies, and those antibodies are ready to fight things right at the door, so it doesn't let it in. If you're in the purple state, your antibodies are not robustly lined up and ready to go, just like soldiers. And it lets things in, and now you have to deal with bronchitis, sinusitis, pneumonia, etc. This treatment is a great treatment to do before, to prevent you from getting sick, but I do see several patients post-COVID syndromes to restore the nervous system, their immune system, the hormonal. We saw several women stop getting their menstrual periods, go into exhaustion states, kind of lose their hair and quality of their health, and we can turn this back on, going from that purple to the green. Again, you match the homeopathic remedy is the pink. That you're trying to match for exactly the way the configuration of the distorted, contracted, and compensated state is. That's called the extraction, trying to understand what happened to you and what are you feeling. And the feelings of physical feeling and an emotional feeling. You drop the pink into the purple and you just watch this conversion, and sometimes it takes 2 to 6 weeks and you're seeing amazing conversions of immune function, nervous system function, hormonal, and then cardiovascular. If you want to save yourself from chronic hypertension or even a heart attack or stroke, get in the green. The only way to get in the green is subtracting the negative. And then things like arthritis. Arthritis is chronic lack of softening agents, chronic lack of moisture in your joints. So the joints dry out, just like hair and skin can dry out. And when you grind a joint that's being contracted and held together, that joint is going to start to grind, creating bone spurs, irregularity of the smoothness. The joint space starts to decrease. And of course, that gets painful and secretes, and it produces a nodule. And you can see nodules on people's fingers. Osteoarthritis hits the distal fingers, and rheumatoid hits the proximal. That's one of the ways we know what type of arthritis it is. And if you catch this early, you can actually literally see them melting down to normal. That's what the green represents, is a soft, smooth, articular surface of the joint. Autoimmune diseases are where if you stay in that purple too long and you put that genetics for it together, your own antibodies attack your healthy tissue. In the green, that's a smarter cell waiting to fight only virus, bacteria, or tainted food. You can beat food is not always perfectly clean, and your stomach is lined also with immune cells. There's more immune cells through the intestinal tract than anywhere in the body. That's why some people get appendicitis. And if the immune cells are aligned beautifully, it'll knock any imperfect food down without getting too sick. If you're in the purple and you get the virus or tainted food a little bit, has a little bacteria in there, or a problem, you are much more likely to not be able to fight it well, or in a stroke or cardiovascular disease. If you stay in the contracted state, you have a stressful event, you can't let go of it, and it starts to implode inside. That's what leads to chronic hypertension and strokes. A lot of people are walking around in that contracted state every single day. I always say, if you've never had a tune-up between age 25 and 45, you're going to crack some leaks in the bucket. You're going to start to create some problems. And symptoms, instead of treating the symptom, in homeopathic, you're treating the system. And when the system goes from the purple to the green, now you've got a healthy system that's going to work for many, many years. So healthy brain function, healthy body function. The relational method is a person sits before us for between 60 and 90 minutes, and we're saying, what do you feel inside yourself that is both a physical feeling and an emotional feeling? And they're going to be saying the same thing. Like almost all of our MS patients say, yeah, that they tell their past story a bit. Tell me a strong turning point in your life that was difficult. And that really ate on my nerves. That really grated on my nerves. And that's what MS is. It's your own antibodies. These are the purple, you might say, is an antibody, or white blood cell is dissolving your myelin sheath, creating an abnormal function in the nervous system. In arthritis, it's almost always deals with deep things inside that made you feel highly stressed, irritated, resentful, or deep betrayals that you have trouble releasing. And if you hold that in for 15, 20, 25 years, it starts to develop arthritic situations in your joints. So the key is to get that negative memory out. There's memory cells. Like we'll see people lose 50 to 100 pounds, and if you don't clear these signals from the brain, they'll gain the exact same 50 to 100 pounds back. Those are called memory set points. And if you do this and you convert back here, people can lose weight and keep it off permanently. Another thing in this diagram, you'll see, if you look back at these two, the filters. The filter is those blocks there where the signals have to get through. This is a healthy filter. It should be open. If you see off to the right, a healthy filter is porous, changeable, and proper thickness. And the filter should open and close at your need. Put it up when you're doing a formal presentation or you're not with someone that you trust that much. And the front of the brain is very careful about what you say. When the filter opens up, then signals can come out, including friendly signals or love signals or positive signals, or maybe complimenting someone or apologizing to someone after you have had a negative interaction, where this person has a lot of trouble. This person has a lot of trouble apologizing because it is too painful for them. They can't say, I love you. They can't say, I'm sorry. They can't admit any fault. And these people, they have no idea that the very state that's making them a hard-hearted person, I call that in the center of the heart brain, is going to create arthritis, heart disease, hypertension, autoimmune diseases, strokes, etc. So this is the name of the game. The dials 1 through 7, how we sleep. Dial 1. 2 is day-night cycle, how we wake up. Some people wake up cheerful and good. Some people wake up exhausted, like I never slept. I see this all the time with my chronic fatigue patients, and even a lot of teenagers and kids in their 20s. I wake up exhausted. I don't have enough energy through the day, and they're looking for that magical supplement to give them energy, or they're taking Adderall or some of these drugs, or lots of caffeine and coffee, which sometimes dries the system out as well because it's a chronic diuretic. And we tell them, hey, how about turning your system back on with dial number 1, 2, all the way down, all 7 dials, turn them back on, and you'll have more energy than you've had in many, many years. I'm sure, Ed, you've seen that as you're treating them for the eye, and they come back and say, I've got so much energy. I'm going to the gym. I'm positive. I'm going out socializing again, dancing again, feeling good again. Dial number 3 is temperature circulation. You know, as you age, people get cold. They don't tolerate the cold environment. Some people go the other way and get crazy hot. Those are the inflammatory types. And we know in homeopathy, certain remedies are geared more for the hot types, like sulfur, where you have arsenicum album more geared for the cold types, or ignatia, because ignatia is about constriction. Arsenicum is chronically inflamed blood vessels, so they don't let that beautiful 98-degree blood get to those organ systems. That's part of dial number 3, temperature circulation. Thirst and fluid retention. This is part of moisture of the system. If you dial 4 shuts down, then you're in trouble. You're going to dry your system out. skin, nails, hair, etc. 5 is appetite, fullness, metabolism. And some people have no appetite. They lose their appetite. Most people have too much appetite. And some people had obesity in their life, and later as they get older, flip to getting too thin. That can be a big problem, especially you get pneumonia or something like COVID. If you don't have enough good fat cells to help stay alive, thin people can expire from pneumonia very easily. And sense of fullness. Some people are born with a very sluggish system, or if those filters go into the blocked state, like here, that person doesn't feel full. They're eating and they just keep eating until they develop obesity. And we'll see people in my office that are 4, 5, and 600 pounds. And you don't ask them, how did this happen? You know, they have no idea. That part of the posterior brain is unconscious. It's where emotions lie. And 90% of them have abusive childhoods, chronic difficulty, felt ostracized, and they're using food for love rather than social interactions, friendships, and intimate relationships. The back of the brain wants those things as much as it does for food. But food goes down into the stomach, stimulates the brain a little bit, and they keep eating until they get a pain in their stomachs and have to take things for upset stomachs. And metabolism, people will tell me some people are hypermetabolic and they're so thin they can't gain weight. Majority of people are sluggish metabolic and they want something to help them lose weight. In the old days, Ed, you probably remember there's something called fen-phen and dexedrines and all those things. Those are artificial speed, basically. But if you turn your own on, it's just the right amount of metabolic process so you don't gain weight or lose weight. And 6 is hormones. When I say hormones, I mean thyroid, pancreas, adrenals, ovaries, testes. Imagine turning your own hormones on with homeopathy by working with the hypothalamic pituitary signaling axis, turning that on rather than taking a hormone. There's nothing wrong with taking a hormone if you have lost it completely as you get older, but if you can restore good hormonal function, which is what this is right here, that positive signal regulates all your hormones. We'll see, I'm sure, Ed, you've seen menstrual periods come back in order, even though you're treating supposedly the eye. You'll see menstrual periods come back in order. You see male erectile dysfunction and impotence improve. You can see things like female dryness improve without having to add lubricants because the natural signal turns the glandular system on. It also keeps motivation. Dial 7, that's your autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic, parasympathetic. Sympathetic is for energy, getting the job done, organized, focused, motivation. When that runs too high, you get anxiety, panic attacks, despair. And parasympathetic is doing things in a relaxed way, nice and calm. But if that's running too high, you can get into chronic fatigue states. So when the homeopathic comes in, it turns those systems back into balance. You get a good energy with a nice, relaxed, calm way. And the last one is primal emotion, which is how you feel about yourself. This person is in trouble. Like those girls cutting themselves. This is a new thing. Why are they cutting themselves? And when we ask them, why did you stop cutting? They all said, I don't know. I don't know means this. It cleared, can actually clear those circuits. So down here, it says homeopathic remedies erase distorted signals or distortion signals. This person's loaded with so much negativity, they'd have to buy a brand new car every 6 to 12 months in order to be happy, or they'd have to eat so much food, donuts and bagels and high fluff foods. Those carbohydrates are loaded with serotonin stimulatory things. They get addicted to them, or sugary drinks. They can't stop drinking them. We have a nutrition clinic where we do have to give out appetite suppressants because the person is so highly addicted to that food, they can't stop. In homeopathic, when you remove, it says erase those signals, you're in full control and the filters begin to thin out. These are different filter states. And when the filter is healthy, it has healthy responses to stimuli, things you're dealing with in your life, you have positive response to. You have a balanced sensitivity, not too sensitive, not too callous, and a very secure feeling. This is a great feeling. You feel you could take on the world, you could do anything in life and do it in a very relaxed way. Thin filter, these are people whose part of the brain, that filter is getting too thin. They sense their environment too much. Their feelings from their own brain come out too much. Highly sensitive people that have numerous bothersome symptoms. And they'll run to the doctor. I'll see a lot of them will come in and they have maybe 5 to 10 symptoms that a doctor says, well, you don't have a disease. There's nothing wrong with you. All your labs are normal. And people go, they get upset about that. Why are you upset? Your labs are normal. You're healthy. Well, I feel terrible. I have migraines. Migraines don't show up in the blood. Even cancers often don't show up in the blood. I have arthritis. Well, you know, your arthritis is just from age. Well, wait, I'm only 43 years old. Well, you've been in a contracted, dried out state. And in people who are highly sensitive, they can't thicken that filter to kind of block things from their brain or from the world. They'll develop a tight filter. This is where arthritis starts. These set up in sensitive people trying not to feel or express things from themselves, but they get body tightness. And you can actually see it in the jaw, where the jaw gets really tight. The neck gets tight. The spine, the low back gets tight. The legs, the buttock, everything gets tight. And they're looking to stretch, stretch, stretch. If you stretch tight fibers, you go into spasms and that can cause problems. And I think in your field, Ed, with the eye, people don't know the actual lens is moving, the eyeball is moving. That's part of accommodation for vision. When you get a lot of stiffness in your neck, you're probably also going to get stiffness in an eyeball requiring, it's normal to have stiffness when you're 50s and 60s and 70s and beyond, but not when you're a young person. That's probably coming from abnormal filter tightening. Thick filter is, these are people who have a thick filter. That's an easy way to live. But the problem is, because they don't feel a lot, they feel little from their environment or their own emotions. They can turn them off like nobody else. But if they do have a problem in the body, those signals don't get notified to come down and fix it. So disease can go often undetected in these people until it gets set in. This scares doctors about, is this person just had a beautiful physical, everything's fine, and then a week later they have a heart attack because that doesn't measure in the blood. And then mosaic filters, these are people who have ADD and focus trouble. Some things they're too sensitive to, other things they're blocked to. This is a very confusing state where you get mixed stability and fine sensitivity. And a broken filter is a sudden break in the brain signaling that can lead to whatever you have stored up in that brain can suddenly flood out, causing what we call nervous breakdown, panic attacks, anxiety attacks, or sudden physical symptoms like I never had this asthma before and now I do. I never had migraines, now I'm having cluster headaches or flooding of migraines. Everything from the brain that you were holding in is starting to flood out. This would be the flood down here where you're getting, imagine if that filter, it's like a dam. And when that dam opens up and you get a flood of this stuff and you didn't remove it, it's going to flood out a lot of negativity. This says successful treatment is the distortion has been erased. The brain's in a very relaxed state. Now the filter starts to thin back out, or in a thin person starts to thicken back up, and they're able to have good brain-to-brain function, handling anything comes your way emotionally, and then good body-brain function, regulating all those 7 dials of good, healthy function. The glands are connected. So rather than taking thyroid to fix all your problems, try turning on the system and you have a self-running system, but you can't do it when you're running in this state. And for years, Ed, I did homeopathy and I was seeing people convert from a very negative state to a positive state. And I just put it together with my neurology background. I studied neurology for a long time and saying, how do we get these people, one of the most amazing things, you can stop people from stuttering. This person is going to be a stuttering person. And then this person will smooth. That little girl on our website, you'll see her skin go from leather-like alligator skin to perfectly beautiful and smooth. Well, her stutter went away. Her self-esteem grew. She went from 0 friends to popular on the playground. This represents thickening up of that filter. The more you have negative things occur in your life, filter layers get set up to armor you against feeling those things. They start between the age of 8 and 12. The more wounding occurs, or miasm, that's a word, Ed, I'm sure you know, miasm is the inheritance of negative genetics that sets up dysfunction deep inside without experiencing a traumatic event. You inherit from your parents or grandparents or great-grandparents struggles that have nothing to do with you. Sometimes I'll tell people, I'm sorry, you're going to have to heal for your lineage. So the first step with this patient is getting the layers off. So the first remedy tries to get in. It's almost like drilling through concrete sometimes. The second remedy can get in deeper, and by 3 and 4, it can get in, touch that core, and make the opening occur. This says that if we give that homeopathic treatment and it's off the target, the response is too light or 0. Stronger responses are felt in a person when we get correct information while we're talking to the person during the homeopathic interview. The practitioner's ability is completely dependent on the completeness of that person's history. You've got to tell truly what goes on. I had one of my relatives, and he had a chronic corneal dysplasia where the cornea would tear off his eyes in the morning when he'd open up his eyes. And UCSF just said to put ointment in the eyes and tape them closed. That was the solution. So when he opened his eyes in the morning, they wouldn't rip off the cornea. Better solution is stop the autoimmune disease that was causing the corneal dysfunction in the first place, so the layers of skin wouldn't dry out and tear off. For those kind of results, you better get something that is right in the middle. And I did send him to a practitioner who unfortunately did not get it right with him. He got no response. I remember him telling me, why are you practicing this hard? It doesn't work. And I said, well, what did he give you? He gave me Nature Muriaticum. Oh no, that is not the right prep. Did you tell him about all parts of you? Well, no, he didn't ask enough questions. And I realized back in the 1980s, we were all very new at this. We didn't know how to do the extraction process. I now call it the relational method. By the end of the 90 minutes, we're going to have the patient telling us why they have their disease and relate it to how the brain is functioning also. The green represents the homeopathic treatment. If it's fit right, nice and tight to the black line is a summary of all their problems together, then you get this almost like shaking the ornaments off a Christmas tree. You get a lot of symptoms start to fall away, and you get this conversion of the purple going back to this amazing green. That's what you want. You want to convert from the purple to the green. And the word homeo means similar. Pathos is disease. So you're saying, I'm going to give you something similar to the way you're stuck or frozen or dysfunctional. It's a very simple concept, but it's difficult to get this prescription here right in the center. And that's my and Ed's expertise. Is as you're talking, we're listening to everything you're saying, and we're trying to find the peculiarities that describe how the purple's infecting several different parts of your system. The more you're acting in what's called out of the wound or the compensated state, the sicker you're going to get. The false is just a false veneer over the top so no one sees it. When you get healthy, a lot of people say, I just feel like my old self again. I feel very relaxed and healthy and confident. This is just a general curve. That's how homeopathy goes. It has little peaks and valleys, but it doesn't take that long. If we catch things early, you're talking a 6-month to 12-month, sometimes at the most a 24-month healing period. But like I said, that woman who came in yesterday, rheumatoid arthritis, by week 6, she was showing a 50% improvement in all her rheumatoid symptoms. Healing responses occur in these peaks and valleys. The peaks are much better health, more energy, etc. Valleys don't occur as low as prior to the successful treatment. Eventually, you get into these plateaus where a person's feeling good health all the time, and disease gets eradicated, health is achieved, the treatment cycle is completed, you don't stay on the treatment anymore, and you just enjoy many years of good health now experienced. And that's what we're looking for, is how to help people get into the green and get into this amazing healthy brain function. So I'd like to open it up for questions people have of how this works or any comments.
Yeah, what we can do is you can either type your question in the chat for Dr. Lester to answer, or down below, there's reactions. You can raise your hand and we'll unmute you if you wanted to talk to him. So there, Maggie has a question.
What about something like Parkinson's?
I do treat quite a few Parkinson's patients, and Parkinson's is due to the shut off of that inner part of the brain right there in the center. That's the substantia nigra is in that part. And you might say that that person has spent a life of walking around like this in a blocked state. So their dopamine levels are dropping, dropping, dropping. Unfortunately, many of them are fairly advanced by the time they come in to see me. I did give a lecture at our local Parkinson's group in California here, Northern California, and several patients came in. If they're in the earlier stage, you can turn on that part of the brain and get better function. They speak better, their movement improves, the shaking can decrease. Day before yesterday, I saw a woman with severe bradykinesia where she could hardly speak and walk, and she had to use an elevator to, now she goes up and down the stairs, her speech is faster, she's able to communicate better, she doesn't need the cane as much, she's having a wonderful experience. And I saw another man for Parkinson's yesterday, as a matter of fact, and his tremors reduced. He's 82 years old now, he's had it for about 30 years. He's not had to advance, I do have them, if they're advancing, use a Cinemet or the Parkinson's levodopa carbidopa along with this, but you're trying to get the brain to secrete its own dopamine from here. And in homeopathy, you're making receptors respond better to even small amounts of dopamine. It's kind of 50-50. 50% is how much dopamine you can make, and 50% is how much the receptor responds to that dopamine. I think it's a brilliant treatment, but it's not for people who are extremely advanced and are on multiple drugs. If you have a DBS, the deep brain stimulation, you can still add it for positivity, because as you know, they get that masked faces where they're not able to smile and talk very well. It can improve speech dialect, brain function, memory. It's worth a try, and the sooner you get on this, the better.
Just one other thing. How about cataracts?
So I know a bit about that, but my dear colleague Ed is the expert. When I read about that cataracts would be helped by homeopathy, I said, how is that possible? And I think when you look, there's about 100 remedies listed. It probably slows it down, moisturizes, because cataracts are, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Ed, it's like a dehydration of the lens itself, isn't it?
Well, it's a hardening of the lens. So you look at hardening maybe in the personality, or something they don't want to see. But I think out of all the conditions I treat, cataracts are probably the most difficult because you really have to look at the underlying process that's been going on for a long time. And as Jeff mentioned, there's something called a miasm, hereditary information that's been transformed to you. And there's another question here is, and I think this is important, I want to address. How can you find an expert practitioner to provide the right treatment? And I think that there are many doctors out there that call themselves homeopaths, but they've had marginal training or very little training. I mean, Dr. Lester and myself, we've devoted our life. I've been practicing homeopathy for over 30 years, and I'm still learning. Same thing with Dr. Lester. I do like the American Institute of Homeopathy. You can Google them. These are medical doctors, osteopathic doctors that have a lot of experience in homeopathy, and the requirement to become certified is very, very rigorous. That's the American Institute of Homeopathy. Also, my expertise is in the eye. I think if you do have another physical problem, then Dr. Lester, you do phone consults, don't you? You do.
Yes, we now do. Actually, since the pandemic, that's increased dramatically. We do an online diagnostic service because we like to see the facial structure, how much tension's in the jaw. You like to see how the eyes, hair. You like to see the person. So phone consults are actually much better if you do a Zoom type of thing like this. We have a private one on our website. It's for video conferencing. You do a visit. We do it everywhere now in the country.
So what's the best way that people can get in touch with your office?
Best way to get in touch, firstly, our website at trilogymedical.net. You'll see all of our information. You'll see videos, contact information. Our phone number's on there. That's 831-600-8117. And there's also an 800 number listed on the website. And there, you can set up, they're called doxy.me. That's a private instead of Zoom as a public forum. This is a more private one used by psychologists and physicians. And we sign in, there's a waiting room, just like a doctor's office. You sign it, you get on the schedule, the staff puts you in. And if it's new, it's a 90-minute for most people, 60 minutes if it's a simpler problem. And you get on just like we're doing right now, and we discuss what's your problem. I do require people who have had seen a physician if it's a medical problem that needs medical attention, and that they have labs and properly. Western medicine is great for making sure there's no emergencies or no difficulties that have to imminently be stabilized through a drug. But if that's not the problem, everything is stable, you have that all, then you just get on, do the diagnosis. We send the homeopathic preparations right through the mail or UPS, and it gets to the person right in their comfort of their home. I just cured a girl in Tucson, Arizona, a 13-year-old girl with fibromyalgia. Within 30 days, just doing it online. Her mom was there with her talking. She's a cute little girl, body pains, mom has it, and she has the same thing as mom. She inherited it. And 30 days later, the girl's pain-free.
So you don't have to travel to California to see Dr. Lester. There's another question here is, how can I find an eye doctor who is oriented this way? Unfortunately, they're rare. More and more eye doctors are becoming interested. In fact, I have the pleasure, I'm going to be speaking to the Christian Ophthalmology Society this summer. They have a big meeting, and there's going to be over 300 doctors there, and I'll be talking to them about homeopathy. And I've been invited to speak in Colombia, South America, to their national meeting. And the doctors there want me to speak on homeopathy. And I've spoken in Italy on homeopathy. So more and more eye doctors are becoming, and if your eye doctor is interested in homeopathy, please ask him to call the office. I'd be happy to talk to them. And I think both Dr. Lester and I are interested in beginning, some type of educational program for doctors, either a study group or, some formalized training. So we do want to spread the word. This is just a wonderful way of really healing the body and treating the disease, not, just masking the problem.
That's right.
Really making you healthy,
Yeah, the health, the vibrancy you can see. And people, please check out the website under services. You'll see that little girl I'm talking about. And below her is a little girl with cluster warts. And I put those on because you can actually see on the skin. She's got about 60 warts on her hands and feet. And she was an athlete. She had to stop her athletics. It was so painful. The more they lasered them off, the worse the warts became. And 2 months after homeopathic care, you'll see the most beautiful skin on her feet and hands. They healed at the same time because her immune system did that. And the one above, you'll see that little girl also given no hope. 8 years of suffering with alligator skin, asthma, stuttering, gone in 4 months of homeopathic care. So this is, not only is homeopathy a miracle for creating vibrantly healthy people, it can save people's lives. My father-in-law, after I treated him back in the 80s when I was first getting introduced, he'd had 2 heart attacks. After we introduced him, gave him some homeopathic sulfur, never had another heart attack. Never needed, he was having vascular spasm related to hypertension, and he was one angry guy when I met him. He became a pussycat by the time we were done. No more heart attacks, blood pressure normalized. And it was funny because when I first met the family, the mother had come in for 25 years of ulcerative colitis, which is like Crohn's disease as well. Bleeding, diarrhea, mucus, chronic autoimmune inflammatory, terrible way to live. She was on prednisone, down to 105 pounds, 5'7", like a skeleton. And when I told her, she came into me as a young doctor, I was in my early 30s, that I think I might be able to fix your colitis. He came in, I thought he was going to sock me right in the nose. How dare you, young doctor, think she's been treated at Stanford for 25 years. You think you're going to cure her colitis? And boy, I was a little nervous at the time.
I have to, a lot of the folks listening are from the East Coast. They don't know Stanford. Stanford is like the Harvard in California.
Yes.
Right. They didn't like that I was challenging, no, you don't go against that as a young whippersnapper. And I said, well, I've been studying this new system, and we just learned about this remedy called phosphorus, and it's just elemental phosphorus, can't hurt her, but you potentize it into a homeopathic signal, and it might just work. Well, lo and behold, 2 months after her treatment, her bleeding stops, the mucus stops, the cramping. She went from 3 to 4 foods a day up to about 45 to 50 foods, gained weight, went back to 145 pounds. She is still alive today, 90 years old, picture of health, never came back. Never had autoimmune colitis ever again. She's never had to have another colonoscopy. So he
Hey,
became my
Jeff,
best friend.
can you type your web address in the chat? Some people want to know, repeat your website.
Certainly. Let me see if I can
Type
get
it in the
that
chat.
screen.
And then somebody asked about glaucoma. Well, glaucoma is a
Mhm.
disease that I think is treated the wrong way by traditional ophthalmology, with eye drops. They're just cause suppression. They don't treat the underlying problem. So homeopathy can be very, very valuable and actually curative in some cases in treating glaucoma. But once again, you have to understand the patient. You have to understand the disease to find the right homeopathic remedy. So it's not like, oh, you take this remedy for glaucoma. No, you're treating the person. So you may have 100 people with glaucoma, and each one may need a different disease. Did you find the chat?
Oh no, I'm still trying to get to that main screen. I
Here,
forgot.
let me do it. www, it's Trilogy, TRIOLOGY.
LOG, TRILOGY. Yeah. Trilogymedical.net.
Medical.net. I think I put it in the right way. TRIOLOGY medical.net.
TRILOGY. Is that what you got there? TRILOGY?
TRIOLOGY.
Mm-mm.
No, that'd be trilogy. So this is trilogy is TRIL. There's no extra O in there.
Okay.
TRILOGY.
OGY.
Okay, we got it. So that's the right one.
Yeah, trilogymedical.net. And really, it's become quite amazing that now I used to try to refer to doctors in parts of different states, and it was hard to find one. Maybe it wasn't working well. And now with Zoom type of video, my goodness, teleconferencing, telemed, not only can you get on, but a lot of insurances cover telemedicine now, where you can bill Medicare, you can bill insurances, and really we save them a lot of money, because if the person gets well, here, I'll pull up my website. I don't know if I'm still on there or not, but if you get well, then you are in good shape. You save the insurance company a lot of money, including Medicare. Does that come up there, the website at
Yeah.
all?
I see your smiling face there. Great.
There it is.
There's another question here about RP, or retinitis pigmentosa. Homeopathy can help RP. RP is a hereditary disease, so we categorize that in terms of a miasmatic disease, and that tends to be a little bit more difficult to treat. But I've treated many patients with retinitis pigmentosa. And homeopathy can help. It's usually not curative, but we can help slow the process, restore some lost vision.
Can you see that, Ed, that little girl on the picture?
Yeah,
So that's that little girl. I'm telling you, if you look at the inflammatory tendency around that eye, with the cuts around her eye, she had around her mouth as well, and all through her body. You can see it on her legs. You see that kind of crusty alligator skin there, and it was on her back, her legs, her arms, pretty much everywhere. And Herring's law of cure states that the problem will move out towards the outside. You see how a little bit left on her wrist, but the proximal type of her part of her arm there is completely healed. And you can see in that sparkle back in her eye, you see that dull inflammatory look to the sclera and the eyelids. See how puffy the eyelids look. And you can see in that other picture how she's starting to recover. And then down below that is that girl with the cluster warts. Those were very painful on her feet. And you can see beautiful skin there just 2 months later, Same thing was on her hand. This is the same girl where about 50 little warts all clustered. You can see the bottom one down near her pad of her hand, all cleared because her own immune system cleaned that up. It wasn't because, and it gave her a constitutional remedy, which means something to unlock that immune system. And it just like a tiger went to town and removed all these without any burning, no cutting, no laser.
There's a question here. How long should you try a homeopathic remedy before trying a new remedy? And I think that we like to see a shift fairly quickly. I use the LM potency, so I like to see a change within a couple weeks to a month. But it depends on the remedy, and it depends on the disease, because some remedies are slow acting, other remedies are fast acting. Dr. Lester, you want to comment on that?
I agree with that very much, is that it depends on the condition. And remember that armoring layers where you have those multiple rings around. If you have a lot of armoring layers, it can take longer than others. And others, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you're starting to feel. Some people feel it in days, just a shift of energy and starting to feel some relief of pain or whatever. But mostly we do follow-ups at week 6 to say, what did it just get better for 2 weeks and shut off by week 3, or is it continuously getting better? That's what we want to see. If by week 6 they're showing a significant resolution of multiple levels, then they're on their way to having great results. That little girl took about that's about 4 months for her skin to do that conversion. This girl only took 2 months for her conversion. These are young kids. And if someone has more debilitating conditions, been there, and takes a longer time. And also we have to say, Ed, that some people come in and they are not very good communicators. I try to keep the friendliest face I can so they feel comfortable. But if they are not a good communicator and you cannot draw that relation between that body and mind, it can take several visits before the person sees. You've got to communicate deeper. Like that relative I told you, that corneal dysplasia, he also had a terrible condition of psoriasis, and they didn't get to the root. You've got to have the person during the interview speak for the skin and the eye in the exact same words that produces the psoriasis and the corneal dysplasia. They have to use adjectives that describe in themselves as a person. And that can take a few visits to get someone to talk on that level, because in Western medicine, we've trained people to think very superficially. We've trained them to say things like, I have allergies, I have headaches. We don't want to stop there. We want to go, okay, well, let's understand why you have headaches, why you have your allergies, why you have your arthritis. And by the end of that 60 to 90 minute session, it will be very clear, as long as you have a cooperative patient. I would always say, you don't need to believe in homeopathy, you have to cooperate. And if a non-cooperative person, and maybe they're not cooperating, not out of belligerence, they're not cooperating out of ignorance. They don't know how to speak in a way that draws the needed information out. And it can take 2, 3, or 4 times before, like in rheumatoid arthritis, the person will always hold deep resentments inside that lead towards kind of a destructive joint, attacking your own joints. It's lack of connection with people. We find this very common with the rheumatoid arthritis patients. So I have probably a 90% success rate in converting earlier cases of rheumatoid arthritis over to joint-free living, joint pain-free living.
There's a question. Will I have access to this video to share with others? I'm going to be posting it on my podcast station, and you go to condratpodcast.com. It'll be posted there, condratpodcast.com. And make sure that the office has your email address. I'll be sending it out via email. There's a couple other questions. Lydia. Hi, Lydia. I'm going to unmute you. You have a question for Dr. Lester?
Yes, I have a question. I started to read the book by Dr. Fulford. He's not alive anymore. He was a DO. And in his book, he mentions briefly that one of the reasons we can feel very uncomfortable is the barometric pressure that influences our health. And he said we cannot do much about it.
Well,
So,
I knew Dr. Fulford many years ago.
okay.
Yeah, I knew him. And the part he was missing is that barometric pressures influence pressure of your fluids in your brain, spinal cord, joints, etc. But if you're in that green state, there's less pressure in your system. Then when you elevate the pressures, it's unnoticeable. It doesn't cause trouble. When your own pressure, you're already in a pressurized state and you increase pressure a little bit, there's no room there. You don't have the ability to not, and that causes problem. But a lot of, when I went to osteopathic medical school, I thought I was going to learn about how to return the person back to a healing state. And unfortunately, homeopathic had been thrown out. We didn't get that training. We got Western medicine with osteopathic manual techniques with your hands. If you're producing too much fluid in an inflammatory state and you add a barometric pressure to that, it's going to cause a lot of trouble. But if you're in a balanced state of fluid secretion, it'll be no problem. So my patients do not experience the migraines anymore. They don't experience general headaches, joint swellings, or any of their other things related to, you're much more tolerant to weather changes, environmental stresses, heat, cold, etc. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. I have to start homeopathic medicine again.
Yeah, if you're not with a practitioner who's getting you, then you go to a different practitioner, get a new read. Like in Athens, Greece, they have a 35 doctor clinic where all the MDs and DOs work together. And if you're stuck on a case, you can't understand it, then you talk to your friend, hey, I got a case of this, and they work together to solve it. And then you get results, or you go online to someone like myself or Ed for the eye conditions, we're 30, I'm 35 years experienced in this. So I've made a lot of track record into, I don't get caught up on what's called superficial data. You go into the deeper information so we can get results.
Okay. And this information, how to heal a person, because what I know from Dr. Conrad's lectures already, that, for instance, if I were to come to you with arthritis, there is not just one product for us, homeopathic product for arthritis, is it? You would have to listen to me, as you explained already, for an hour or 90 minutes to see exactly what kind of product I need, right?
That's absolutely correct. Yes, you're trying to convert this purple. Can you still see that diagram okay?
Yes, yes.
You see, you convert, that is an individual match. It says the word match. You're matching a similar homeopathic remedy to the dysfunction you're diagnosing in the patient individually, and then the conversion happens, and then the arthritis begins to repair. If you're with a practitioner who's not spending at least 45 minutes to an hour, they probably are unless it's a superficial problem or a targeted problem. Like if you're choosing with, let's say someone has just a bronchitis that won't heal. Oh, you're only choosing between 30 remedies, then you don't need more than 30 minutes of that visit. You can make that diagnosis. But someone who's got asthma, that can be a lifelong condition, you have to understand how the brain-body connection is wrong, and then match that remedy to match both mind, body together, and you get that conversion. That takes 90-minute diagnosis.
Thank you so much.
Now, Maggie, do you have another question? Your hand's up.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Conrad, this is for you. I have, including myself, about 3 or 4 friends, all facing cataracts. And they've been told many things by their ophthalmologist. I know you're the expert. Is there some place that we can go to learn what to do, that maybe we can either stop it or prevent it, reverse it?
Well, you go to my website, healingtheeye.com, all one word, healingtheeye.com. You can download my best-selling book, 10 Essentials to Save Your Sight. You can download it for free. I give you all the information there. I also put together a webinar on how to reverse cataracts. And you can also find that on my website. If you're new to my website, click that button and it'll take you to an area where you can find out more about cataracts. But the thing is, you know, cataracts are a chronic problem. There's no shortcut. It's not like you're going to take a treatment and in a couple of days have perfect vision.
Right.
So, you know, that's why I like homeopathy, because homeopathy addresses the underlying cause. The big problem with ophthalmologists, they want to pressure you into surgery. You have a cataract, let's get it taken out. And then the question I think you should ask yourself is, am I limited with the cataract? Just because you have a cataract doesn't mean you have surgery. I'm 72 years old. I have cataracts. Dr. Lester's younger than me. You're 60 some. You got cataracts. Everybody over the age of 50 has cataracts. That doesn't mean you need surgery. But on the other hand, if you're limited visually, if you can't function, you can't read, and you're not living your life, then you have to really consider cataract surgery is not the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's a very successful operation, but I think it's done unnecessarily. And there's also something in homeopathy called suppression, where you don't treat the disease. You treat it superficially and you push the energy that's causing the cataract deeper into the body. Dr. Lester talked about these emotional states that may cause physical problems. So if you use steroids and have cataract surgery and you don't treat that underlying emotional state, that may lead to deeper pathology, like macular degeneration, like depression, like glaucoma. So that's why you want to really find out, what is your body telling you? Why are you developing this cataract?
I've had friends that have had major problems from cataract surgery, infections and various types of problems. So some of us are very leery.
Yeah, well, there's two reasons why. One, maybe the surgery didn't go well,
right?
Or the underlying problem wasn't addressed. And no matter how good the surgeon was and how perfect the procedure was, you're going to have these reactions because the underlying problem wasn't addressed.
Got it.
I want to, on the website, can you see some of these? These are some of our patients. This woman in particular, 40 years of abdominal pain with brain fog, cured. I think it only took 3 months, 2 to 3 months to do that. And this one here, chronic GI pain with anxiety, very common condition. If you click on these on the website under the resources, watch Trilogy Talks, you'll see anxiety went away, GI pain went away. And this is a woman, a German woman, you'll hear her accent, lifelong allergies gone. She says in weeks they were gone. And this is me talking just little quick vignettes about how to different approach to asthma, how it cures allergies, how it's used for weight loss, homeopathy for stress during the quarantine, healing emotional problems in young people. God knows we need that now. And then this is our wellness webinar that goes on for about an hour, describing things similar to this, treating infectious diseases. We have very good success with MRSA, which is the incurable staph disease. Our success rate has been pretty much 100% with that one.
Wow.
Chronic skin conditions, joint repair. The founder, Samuel Hahnemann, he was so excited about homeopathy, like Ed and I are, that they threw him out of Germany. They thought he was crazy, but he wasn't crazy. He had discovered something amazing. He goes to France, and from France, it comes to the United States, and then it goes to England, India, and develops in several pockets throughout the world. People should hear about that. And then homeopathy for parents. The best thing you do is get your own brain ready for parenting, because parenting is the toughest job you're ever going to do. I have 6 children, and it's easy when your brain is in that nice, poised, relaxed way, so the kids can grow up in perfectly and perfect and not get upset about little things. So it's not about treating the children sometimes, it's about getting the parents ready before they even have children. So these are things.
We're running out of time, Jeff, but there's one question I think that you should probably address, and this is an interesting one. Do you think some of the COVID-related problems, eye effects, are due to underlying miasm activation? And I think maybe COVID could even be a new miasm.
Yeah, that you're probably absolutely right. I have seen so many people after the COVID, it's triggered their own problems or a new set of problems. It's put a layer on them. They're in trouble, and we have the solution for them. You don't have to lead a life of difficulty. This is what I mean by the layers. When you put on another layer like that, yeah, you're saying now you're getting further and further from your own healthy self. You're in trouble, and we can remove that layer and turn you back to health using homeopathic is signaling. You're signaling the system how to go into repair mode. And I can't say it enough. This is, as a doctor, the most amazing thing you'll see is going from that purple to the green, healthy, vibrant person. COVID doesn't stand a chance. If you do this before COVID, you're much more likely to be able to beat it off more easily. And by the way, vaccinations got invented 4 years after the advent of homeopathy. They are a form of homeopathic medicine, but just for the one disease. This is called constitutional, which means if you get the entire nervous system, immune system, hormonal and circulatory system in the green, the chance of you getting severely sick or staying sick is pretty much nil. So this is the treatment for post-COVID syndromes, long haulers disease, and even better, get yourself constitutional treatment before, and you don't have to hide inside your house for months and months or years, hoping you're not going to get it. We all are going to get things, but the person in the green is going to bounce back like a basketball, not going to hurt them. Someone in the purple, or even worse, if they're what's called, I call this locked and blocked, that person is vulnerable.
All right, well, Dr. Lester, great presentation. Really, really loved it. And thanks so much for taking time. And I will be posting this podcast on CondratPodcast.com. So thanks, everyone, and have a happy Easter. And I think homeopathy can be the best Easter present you'll ever receive. Right, Jeff?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to doing more in the future and helping people find great health, great success in their marriages, their families, and getting into our 90s and beyond, healthy and pain-free.
Okay, thanks, everybody.